current record-setting year for food inflation.
I think you can look, as these prices stay up, I think you can look at food to do nothing but increase.
Fabian Fernandez at U of I School of Agriculture says farmers will just have to hold out for favorable summer weather so the corn can catch up, especially when the plant pollinates in July.
Whether the growing season will be an exceptionally good weather conditions, or would we have a marginal growing condition?
And it's also going to be very critical that our growing season is extended to have a full crop.
Come on back.
On their Champaign County farm, the Watsons are racing against Mother Nature and time. And this spring, both are working against them. A U of I agronomist says farmers could end up losing 50% of their yields if they don't plant corn and soybeans by at least next week. So the Watsons are getting their planter ready just in case there's a break in the weather. But no, it may just end up being an exercise in futility.
It's frustrating because we're going to get our crop in the ground and we're not going to have the full season for that crop to mature and reach its highest yield potential.
Lose yields?
We're going to lose yields, which is not good to a farmer.
The Watsons then work, almost knowing it's in vain, to clear their flooded land with so much rain. It looks more like a small pond than a cornfield.
The seeds have been completely drowned out, lost all their oxygen, and essentially just drowned and died. So we will not have a crop in this pond.
The Watsons will replant 20 acres of commercial corn at a cost of $80 an acre in seeds and diesel fuel, and 200 acres of soybeans at a cost of $50 an acre. But since seed corn must mature at exact dates, 20 acres can't be replanted and will be a total loss of around $21,000.
Time is of the essence right now.
As you notice, the corn's got a little bit of a lighter green, a little paler green color to it, a little bit shorter.
Champaign County farmer Jerry Watson doesn't like what he sees. Corn that should be green has lost its color. A lot of the nitrogen fertilizer he's applied in the soil has washed away in the rains and could end up washing out his yields.
The nitrogen is so related to the yield on the crop, and if you take nitrogen away out of the soil to where the plant can't get it, then you're obviously going to deal with yield loss.
What should be a waving cornfield of solid green instead has a mix of leaves turned yellow after losing fertilizer while underwater. The lack of nitrogen is especially evident up close with yellowish and wilted leaves and stunted growth about a foot below average. But a U of I professor of crop sciences says the record rainfall and lack of sunshine also plays a big part as much as the fertilizer depletion.
Look at the field. If it's very green it looks healthy, then you should not worry too much about additional nitrogen.
But farmers, being the skeptical business owners they admit they are, would rather apply too much fertilizer and be right than too little too late.
But we're trying to at least get the crop everything it needs to yield the most it can. I think it's part of the solution.
The Japanese Broadcasting Corporation, NHK, the equivalent of our PBS, wanted to come to the source of most of their nation's imported corn, the key ingredient to make ethanol.
It may not be the total fix, but obviously what we can do by using ethanol to help relieve some of our dependence on oil is definitely a plus.
So to learn more, the Japanese TV producer said they knew they had to come here to the American Midwest, in the heart of the Corn Belt. And with a full TV crew, they landed on the Champaign County farm of Jerry Watson.
To think that the news agency out of Japan is here to express interest in what's going on here in our little neck of the woods here, and it's very impressive.
Jerry was somewhat surprised the Japanese are as interested in ethanol as Americans. But since the island nation imports 100% of their oil, the Japanese know they also must learn how to develop the biofuel quickly, before gas prices spiral even more out of control.
So we want to know what ethanol means to the farmers who grow corn.
At the end of the day, the two cultures realize they have very similar needs for alternative sources of energy in a world growing ever smaller, problems which may prove easier to solve than the obvious language gap.
I can't understand what they're saying, but they have a translator, so hopefully what we're saying to them will make sense.
Weed control is about as critical as anything that we do on the farm.
It's shaping up to be another long day for Champaign County farmers Jeff Watson and his son Adam.
You can end up losing control of a field with weeds.
The duo is quickly hooking up their herbicide sprayer, filling it with costly chemicals, now twice as expensive as last year. If the crops get too high, farmers must use what are called drops, so the pesticide can reach down past the corn to the weeds below. Any way it's done, spraying weeds is costly in time and money, but the investment must be made. If farmers don't kill off the weeds quickly, they will steal the same nutrients in the soil corn and soybeans thrive on. The Watsons will literally be robbed of their livelihood right out from underneath them. But U of I weed scientist Aaron Hager says it's too late. Weeds are so high, farmers have already certainly lost yields.
It's not uncommon in many fields to experience anywhere from probably a 10 to 20, 25% yield reduction.
But the Watsons want to cut their losses, or at least limit them. So they spray to fight the weeds that some farmers call public enemy number one.
If you don't control the weeds now, you're probably going to be dealing with these weeds year in and year out even worse.
I don't think we realize just how important it is.
These students may not fully understand what they're doing when they detassel corn.
I think we know in the wide scheme.
But they know it's important to farmers.
I understand that we're trying to pollinate the corn a certain way to make a hybrid.
You know, it's just something that has to be done.
Farmers like Jerry Watson depend on detasselers to remove the unwanted tassels or male pollinators. This way only select corn will remain to pollinate the female silks. This select cross-pollination will create the next generation of hybrid seeds. This may not be an exact science, but it's close. Now, to avoid contamination, pickers can only miss no more than 1 out of every 300 tassels. You ever miss?
Not in over a half a decade. So.
You don't want pollination coming from a source other than the male corn that we have planted in this field.
Being out and the corn gets really itchy after a while. Your legs and arms are burning.
To make the tedious work go by a little better, the students try to have some fun.
Some people throw tassels, but you're not supposed to do that.
We'll take like Fergie songs and make it into detasseling songs.
These reddish areas are the low oxygen areas.
U of I Associate Professor Greg McIsaac doesn't like what he sees. This color map outlines the so-called dead zone, where the Mississippi River spills into the Gulf of Mexico. It's the second largest area on record, the size of New Jersey. More than 8,000 square miles of water with oxygen levels so low, almost nothing can live.
There's always some hypoxia occurring naturally, but we've just expanded it to a fairly large level.
Gulf hypoxia is created when elevated levels of nitrogen makes excess algae. When that underwater plant dies